Anniversary Gift. Buzz Woolard stood on the porch of his weathered farmhouse, looking out over the rolling pasture land that stretched west toward the tree line. The morning sun was just starting to burn off the mist that hung low in the hollows, and he could hear the Elk River murmuring in the distance, same as it had done every morning for the 50 years that he and Pearl had called this place home. Their farm sat on a gentle rise about 3 miles west of Anderson, right where the road curved around Cowskin Creek before it wound its way into town. From the front porch, if the leaves were off the trees, you could just make out the steeple of the Anderson Baptist Church poking up above the tree line. It was good land, even if it was rocky in places, like most Ozark ground tended to be. Buzz and Pearl didn't make the trip into Anderson all that often anymore. Maybe once every week or two, Buzz would drive the old Ford pickup into town when it was just the two of them. They'd go in for supplies at Henderson's grocery, or maybe Buzz needed something from the feed store down by the railroad tracks. Every so often, usually on a Saturday, the whole family would make the journey in the station wagon, including their 2 daughters, Pam and Lynn, who were both grown women now but still living at home and helping with the farm work. When they did go to town, they'd sometimes stop in at Tatum's General Store, which sat on Main Street with the bank just a few stores down and the post office 2 blocks away. The store had been there since before Buzz and Pearl were married, and Old Man Tatum, God rest his soul, kept the long-established family business flourishing. Local folks could find everything from work boots to yard goods, from candy sticks to cast-iron skillets. Maybe Buzz would look at a pair of work boots if his old ones were wearing through, which they usually were. Pearl might need an apron or some thread. Sometimes Pam and Lynn would gaze longingly at the dresses hanging on the back wall, though they knew better than to ask for something frivolous when there was sewing to be done at home. Pearl herself didn't pay much mind to the fancy dresses. She had a fine go-to-church dress, dark blue with small flowers on it, that she'd had for years. She had several work-around-the-farm dresses that suited her just fine for daily chores. She was a practical woman, always had been, and Buzz loved her all the more for it. However, on their last trip into Anderson, about a week ago now, something caught Buzz's eye. They'd stopped at Tatum's so Pam could look at some buttons, and while the girls were occupied at the notions counter, Buzz noticed Pearl standing in front of the display case near the front window. The afternoon light was streaming in, and she was looking down at something with the softest expression on her face, the kind of look he hadn't seen in a good long while. When he sidled up next to her, he saw what had captured her attention. There were several silk scarves laid out on the glass, pretty things with flowers and swirling patterns in colors like sunset and spring sky. Next to them sat a large bottle of French perfume, the kind that probably came all the way from Springfield or maybe even St. Louis. Pearl touched one of the scarves gently, just with her fingertips, like she was afraid it might disappear if she pressed too hard. Then she noticed Buzz standing there and pulled her hand back quickly, smiling that little embarrassed smile she got when she thought she'd been caught daydreaming. "Just looking," she said quietly, and turned away to find the girls. She didn't mention the items again, probably because she knew they were too frivolous for a farm family that had to watch every penny. Nevertheless, Buzz took notice. He surely did. The thing was, their anniversary was coming up in just a week. They'd never made much fuss over anniversaries before. Most years it came and went without more than a mention over breakfast, but this year was different. This year marked 50 years since they'd stood in front of Preacher Collins at the Anderson Baptist Church and said their vows. 50 years. Half a century. It seemed impossible that they'd been married that long. And yet when Buzz looked at the creases around Pearl's eyes and the silver in her hair and felt the ache in his own back when he climbed out of bed in the morning, he knew it was true. The next day, without saying a word to Pearl, Buzz told her he needed to go check on a fellow over near Jane who'd promised him some seed corn. Instead, he drove the pickup straight into Anderson and parked in front of Tatum's General Store. Kay Tatum looked up from the counter where she was sorting through a box of ribbons. "Morning, Buzz. What brings you to town today?" "Got some shopping to do, Kay," Buzz said, trying to sound casual. Private shopping, if you catch my meaning. Kay removed the cigarette that dangled between her lips and grinned. Anniversary coming up, is it? 50 years, Buzz said, and felt a swell of pride saying it out loud. Well, I'll be. Congratulations, Buzz. What can I help you find? Buzz pointed to the display case by the window. I need that silk scarf, the one with the blue and gold flowers, and that bottle of French perfume sitting next to it. Kay carefully wrapped the items in fancy paper with silk bows, while Buzz picked out a card from the small selection near the register. After resting her cigarette on the glass countertop, Kay rang up the total, and Buzz's face grimaced when he heard the price. It was more than he'd paid for a spring calf last year. However, the upcoming day was special, and Pearl had gone 50 years without asking for much of anything. She's a lucky woman, Kay said as he handed over the packages. I'm the lucky one, Buzz replied. Back home, Buzz faced a new challenge. Where in tarnation could he hide 2 packages in a house where Pearl knew every nook and cranny? He tried the barn first, tucking them behind some feed sacks in the loft, but the barn was too obvious. So he moved them to the smokehouse, then to the tool shed, then to the back of the wardrobe in the spare bedroom. Every day he'd move them to a new spot, certain that Pearl was getting suspicious. He thought he caught her searching through the linen closet one afternoon, moving the quilts around like she'd lost something. What are you looking for? He asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Nothing, she said quickly. Just tidying up. The special day finally came. It was a Sunday, warm for early autumn, with the trees along Cowskin Creek just starting to show their fall colors. They'd gone to church that morning, and the whole congregation had sung Amazing Grace extra loud when Preacher Collins announced their 50 years. That afternoon, back at the farm with just the 2 of them in the kitchen, Buzz brought out the packages from their latest hiding spot behind the china cabinet. Pearl's eyes went wide when she saw the fancy wrapping. Her hands trembled just a little as she untied the bows and carefully peeled back the paper. When she saw the silk scarf and the French perfume, a smile came over her face that made her look just like the girl he'd married all those years ago. Oh, Buzz, she whispered. They're beautiful. Not half as beautiful as you, he said, meaning every word. Then Pearl surprised him. She disappeared into their bedroom and came back with a package of her own, wrapped in plain brown paper, but tied with a piece of red yarn. I got you something too, she said, her cheeks flushed with happiness. Buzz opened it to find a brand new pair of overalls, the good kind from the Sears catalog, deep blue denim that would last for years. He held them up and grinned. They're just what I needed. They're beautiful. And they were. Not fancy like silk scarves or French perfume, but beautiful all the same, because they came from Pearl. They stood there in the kitchen of their old farmhouse, holding their gifts, and Buzz thought about all the years that had brought them to this moment. 50 years of mornings watching the sun rise over the Ozark Hills, 50 years of hard work and simple pleasures, 50 years of love that had weathered every storm. Happy anniversary, Pearl, he said softly. Happy anniversary, Buzz, she replied. And in that moment, with the afternoon light streaming through the kitchen window and the sound of the creek running beyond the fields, Buzz Woolard knew he was the richest man in McDonald County.